that will drop down in the updraft that gets triggered along that edge of the gust front that is wrapping around it. But this is a classic mature stage tornado right now with here the clear skies. That's rain-cooled air wrapping around. It has provided the rotation for the updraft of this wedge-shaped tornado that is working its way across southeast Nebraska.
To review for everyone that's watching at home right now, we are in Goshen County, Wyoming, live with Vortex2 as they have deployed on a supercell thunderstorm that's producing a tornado right now in open farmland in Goshen County, Wyoming. This is an ideal classic case that Vortex2 has been looking for. They've deployed all of their radars, their probes, the stick nets, the meso nets are mobile, and they crisscross throughout this storm. It's a slow-moving classic storm that they're looking for because that was ideal for them. Low precipitation, especially on the south side, although we're now noticing a lot more in the way of rain, but the deployment should actually be perfect for them, certainly considering the topography that we're looking at here. Relatively flat and a visual that is miles. The radar signature is almost classic on this one. And Dr. Forbes, one of the teams that we haven't talked a lot about on Vortex2 is photogrammetry. When they are looking at this storm, what are they looking for when they're visually inspecting this?
Well, what they will do is they'll photograph the storm from a couple of different locations and then be able to go back from the videos of that and track little elements of the motion, either of debris that they can see or the cloud, the funnel cloud itself, and they'll be able to triangulate and they'll know how far away the tornado is and can actually compute independently of the radar the speed of rotation about the outer edges, both the rotation and the upward motion in the outer edges of this tornado, which now is potentially getting what we call rain wrapped. It seems to be perhaps getting more and more enshrouded in curtains of rain.
Dr. Forbes, as we look at this storm, and now I can see as the outer bands of the supercell itself start to rotate, spiraling around us here, because I can now tell it's getting a lot closer to us. When I look at this storm and watch its movement toward us right now, it is getting closer. Is there going to be a point at which we're going to be in too much danger, and which way is going to be best for us to go? Should we go north, should we go south, or should we head maybe farther east?
Well, yes, definitely should go farther east. And answer to your question, the latest warning has come out, tornado warning now for Goshen and Laramie, parts of Goshen and Laramie counties, and they're indicating now the motion is toward the east at 25 miles per hour. So it has perhaps accelerated just a little bit now as that rain has come out and begun to push on it. So I would expect that what you would need to do would be to move east to keep ahead of it, perhaps move a little bit of southward to keep out of the hail. There's some hail probably right behind this tornado. Of course, you'll be staying ahead of that, but there's a big curtain of rain and probably hail that are just about 5 miles or so to the north of the track. So you certainly would not want to go any to the north. Go east to keep ahead of it and a little bit to the south.
Dr. Forbes, this is almost completely obscured. I can't even see the funnel anymore. It's completely obscured by rain. So now it becomes a very dangerous situation where you can't actually get a visual on where the vortex itself is.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't tell if the tornado is still in there. It probably is still in there, but it is what also could be happening is that rain-cooled air may be choking it off. But it still seems as if there's some faint outline of a tornado in there, but you can see all these rain curtains on the edges where the rain is not so heavy and obscuring that this tornado has gotten enshrouded in rain. The rear flank downdraft and its rain has wrapped around the west side, then the south side, and now it's gone all the way around to the east side of this tornado. And that's part of what is a classic evolution of these supercell tornadoes, big wedge tornadoes like the one, there it is, you can see it again, it's still there, there's the tornado. And the best thing for Vortex2 standpoint is they've caught the whole evolution of this. They've caught it before it had a tornado, they've caught the rear flank downdraft, now they've caught a massive, Mike, a massive wedge tornado is back in that, partly enshrouded in rain.
Dr. Forbes, we are several miles away from this tornado. To my fairly untrained eye, when it comes to visually inspecting a tornado, it does look very significant. It looks very large. I know you've been basically watching the video the entire time. Is there any way to tell on radar potentially how large of a tornado physically we have in diameter?
I can probably at some point go quick and take a look at the radar, but I know we want the viewers to keep seeing the tornado. But just looking at this, I would certainly expect this tornado from visual appearance here to be a quarter-mile wide. This looks to be a very large tornado. If you're 2 miles away, this is a big tornado.
When I look at what could be in the potential path of this storm, Dr. Forbes, I see very little. What I do see, though, from here, between where we are and where the tornado is, I see a lot of high-tension power lines. So I suspect that wherever these lines go, we're going to see some power outages, and what's oftentimes described by storm chasers as spectacular are those flashes of power going out as the tornado actually passes over them.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're certainly going to want to be away from that power line that we just saw there. Oh, there's the high tension one. So several types of power lines.
Yeah, we're basically right under some, so we're probably not in that safe a spot to be as the tornado gets closer. We'll actually have to probably head at least south on this roadway because we're on a north-south road right now. But looking at this tornado, we watched, I believe, 3 funnels come down, then 1 tornado, little rope tornado come down, lift, and now we've got what looks to be, Dr. Forbes, a massive wedge tornado right now. And as you were alluding to, a classic sampling for Vortex2. When I look at things like the probes, Dr. Forbes, these are the very low to the ground probes that they want to put directly in the path of the tornado. They don't sit more than about 3 feet off the ground. What is the advantage of getting data that is that close to the ground when a tornado passes over it?
Well, that's the Doppler radars themselves, because of obstructions, they typically can only see up to about 15 or perhaps more like 50 feet above ground. So about the only way that we get any measurements in those lowest 10 feet of the tornado is by having these surface measurements. The Doppler radar has to aim just a little bit above the ground to avoid all the ground clutter. And so the best measurements would be to have the pods or the stick nets measuring the winds in the tornado as it comes right over them.
Dr. Forbes, interesting that you mentioned that, because look who's just pulled up here. This is the team from Texas Tech. They're the ones with the stick nets. They're about to do a deployment right now. It looks like they're probably deploying in a north-south fashion here as the storm moves its way slightly south of east. And so what they're going to do with these probes, and they're going to put them on the east side of the road here and away from the power lines. What they're going to do here is deploy. As they deploy, it takes them about 2 minutes or so. What they're doing is setting up the stick nets. They'll stake them into the ground. They've got a computer that'll measure all the data, wind speed, it'll measure barometric pressure, it'll measure temperature and humidity. And so what they're doing right now is deploying this stick net in anticipation that at least portions of this storm will come over them. When this is hooked up, they basically then hightail it out of here to stay safe and then come back and gather the data from this stick net. So what you're looking at right here is Tanya and Mike with the Texas Tech and University of Michigan stick net team. So they're hooking up as quickly as possible, because what they do now is hopscotch, and they'll set up these in a line down this roadway in hopes that the tornado itself, or at least the outskirts of the tornado, will pass through several portions of their deployment here, Dr. Forbes.
Yeah, and while you were showing that, I ran over and looked at our 3D radar, and indeed, that radar shows the rain area that's been hiding in behind the tornado there. It shows our Doppler radar shows a big, wide donut. And then, as we've been seeing, the tornado is right inside that donut. So the left and right sides of the donut correspond to the rain, and then the tornado is right in the middle of the donut. At some point, if it stops producing a tornado, we'll show some of that. But I know we want to see all of the ongoing excitement here by the Vortex2 team. There it is. There's the little donut that I was talking about.
How many more deployments are you doing? Are you going south, Tanya?
Yes, we are going south. We have about 5 more left in our trailer.
They are going south, and what's the spacing?
The spacing is 2.5 miles.
2.5 miles separating each stick net as they'll head south now, Dr. Forbes, and probably a good plan, because it looks like, at least on the radar, that it is now turning south, at least south of our location, and you can see what a visual right now on this tornado. I mean, it is amazing. We've got a large wedge tornado on the ground, and obviously the teams are hustling. They are running to get these things in place, because what they want to do is get them down. They can measure the pre-storm environment, the storm environment itself, and maybe even the tornado, and then the post thunderstorm environment. They are placing these about 2 miles apart, so they're racing now farther south. They've still got 5 to go. They've put more up the street farther north so they can get an entire picture of the storm.